modeling, content, entrepreneurship. For someone that's maybe younger, thinking of going into university and sees what you're doing and is super inspired about maybe starting their own business or entrepreneurship, what's kind of the key advice that you've learned and you would say they should take away from your experiences?
That's it's a really tough question to answer, man.
Yeah.
I'll say this: when I was 17 and senior in high school and stuff, and I had offers to go to a bunch of different schools. At least they were seeking to grant me an opportunity to obviously go to school there and get my 4 year degree. And all of them actually left me when grades came out and they found out, yeah, this kid has a terrible GPA, but his SAT score is actually really high. I had really good SAT
Mm.
scores, but I just didn't have the discipline when it had to do with schoolwork. Right? I was always questioning schoolwork, and ultimately, I would never had the time to do schoolwork because Major's busy building a platform that he's trying to market at school. Right? When is he going to have the time to really do homework? It didn't seem interesting to me, really. So, to that kid that's listening to this or watching this right now, I was once you, and I was on my knees and, just praying and begging and realizing my whole world, what I thought was my whole world, was crumbling around me. But embracing failure is one of the biggest superhuman strengths you could ever have, because life is ultimately a series of risks and results, right? So wherever it is that you're at, and it doesn't matter if you're like 16, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, even if you're in your 30s, even if you're in your 40s, a lot of times we think that there's a cap to success, or there's a cap to when you're supposed to do things by. And ultimately conquering that fear of failure will open every door that you're looking to open. So my advice to anyone, really, and not just the kid that's, I hate saying kid, not just a young man or young woman that's looking to, go to college or already in college and figuring things out. Ask yourself, sit down in a room by yourself at the library or something, grab a piece of paper and really just talk to yourself, right? Like, write a letter to yourself about who you really are. What's your background, right? Who you really are. Like, literally write your whole story. Or even better, forget about writing. Just pull up your phone, talk to ChatGPT, and just tell ChatGPT a story, right? And essentially just talk to it about who you are, your background, and really focus and hone in on who you really are and who you would like to be and what you would like to do. It seems like we live in the world this day and age where a lot of people don't go and do what they want to do because you can't afford it, right? Like, I want, like, there's a kid out there that's like, hey, I want to be a content creator and a YouTuber for a living, but they cannot afford that. They probably are like first generation, a second generation, or a kid that has to be successful to be able to feed their family and stuff like that. And that's what I mean by you're not in a position where you can actually afford that, right? Afford that risk. Ultimately, you just have to understand this: you're going to have to make that decision if you really want to get there. It's like you either have a decision of taking a risk early, or you're going to have to take that risk later on in your life, right? And ultimately, one of those is better than the other one. I'd rather take risk early than to take a risk, at the end of life, because one thing is for sure in life, and that's death, right? And if you're lucky, you get to live like a good solid 84 years, right? Like a good solid 84 years. And out of that 84, you probably only remember like 70, right? So if you do the math, you're in school for at least like 20 something of those. You really don't have that much time. So life is not that serious to think that you have to operate within boundaries and parameters. I challenge you to learn about yourself. I challenge you to take calculated risks that invest towards something that you actually would like to do, and stop listening to the world. Stop listening to your peers. Stop listening to, sometimes it can also be your own family, right? Like, ultimately, you know yourself better than anyone. So my advice to whomever is listening to this is, if you live life and you're going on this hike and you're seeing all these people living differently throughout this hike. You see some people at the bottom of the mountain and they've built a nice house, right? They have shelter and everything. And then you start realizing that crap, at the top of this mountain there are people flying. And then you're like, how the hell are they flying? I never knew humans could fly. We're all on this hike together, right? Ultimately, I challenge you to keep climbing that mountain. And when you're at the top of that mountain, ultimately you have to understand that if you never jump, you will never fly. And that's literally like the key to life, right? Anything that we see, that we hear, or that, we get taught essentially are like these great people that have accomplished all these great things, but they're just like you. They might have had help when they were on that hike. They might have taken a shortcut on that hike, but ultimately to fly, they also had to jump. So we all have to take a risk. So ultimately, just take that risk, man, and pursue your happiness. And also go watch Pursuit of Happiness, that Will Smith movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I've watched it countless times. I've had it on VHS and DVD and also on streaming. But more importantly, you should go read the book of Pursuit of Happiness by Chris Gardner. It gives you way more insight to what the movie actually does not touch on. Great book.
Well, like, great advice there and great recommendation at the end. I watched it for the first time. It took me a while to watch it, but I watched it, I think, last year. Absolutely loved it. Like, I was blown away by how much I enjoyed that movie. I didn't really know much coming in, but it was amazing. And then I rewatched it fairly recently, showed my parents it for the first time. They really enjoyed it too. So thanks for the book recommendation, because I heard that Chris Gardner wrote the book, and I guess the movie's based off the book, but I haven't read that, so
It
I
leaves a bunch
definitely
of stuff
will.
out. It
Yeah.
leaves a bunch of stuff out that's really
Hmm.
important. But I mean, Chris Gardner, hell of a parkour, like
Yeah.
hell of a trajectory, and ultimately that is the epitome of consistency and persistence, right? Sometimes in life you have to be hard headed, but you have to be hard headed towards the right things,
Hmm.
and it's going to cost you. It's like success in life or risk in life or anything in life, right? Like you have to give something to get something else. Ultimately, you have to just ask yourself if you would really like to accomplish something, what is worth, giving, right? So you do the math, and whatever makes sense is usually the result. But just as long as you're happy, it's not about money, it's not about status, it's not about having things and all this. It's really about when you wake up every morning, are you happy to go to work, right? When you wake up, when you come home, like, and you're eating dinner with your family and stuff, do you still think about work in a good way? Do you look forward to, going to bed and waking up and doing some more work? Or are you like, man, I can't wait till Friday is here so I can actually have some time for myself, And I think that's a miserable way of living life if you have to wait till the weekend to actually live, or to wait till you're done with work to actually live. So do something that you love.
Yeah.
It wins every single time.